The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Longman Simplified English Series. Read by Surya Thongmak. Chapter 22. In the Haunted House. About noon the next day, the boys arrived at the dead tree. They had come for their tools. I said, "Tom, do you know what day it is?" said Huck suddenly. Tom thought, and then said, with a startled look in his eyes, "Good heavens, I never once thought of it, Huck." "Well, I didn't either, but all at once I remembered that today is Friday." "Hang it, one can't be too careful, Huck. We might have got into an awful lot of trouble starting such a thing on a Friday." "Might? Better say would. There are some lucky days, perhaps, but Friday isn't one of them." So they gave up the search and played Robin Hood all the afternoon. On Saturday, soon after midday, they were back at the dead tree again. They shouldered their tools and marched off. When they reached the haunted house, the dead silence and the loneliness of the place were so repellent that they were afraid for a moment to go in. Then they crept inside. They saw a dusty room with an ancient fireplace, broken windows, and a ruined staircase. They talked in whispers, listening to catch the slightest sound, and ready for an instant retreat. After a time they became bolder and gave a place a critical and interested examination. Next they wanted to look upstairs. They threw their tools in a corner and made the ascent. They found the same signs of decay. They were about to go down and begin work, then Tom whispered, "Shh! What is it?" asked Huck, going as white as a sheet with fright. "Shh! There, hear it." "Yes, oh, let's run." "Keep still, don't move. They're coming right towards the door." The terrified boys stretched themselves upon the floor with their eyes to holes in the boards and lay waiting with the two men entered. Each boy said to himself, "There's the old deaf and dumb Spaniard who's been in the town once and or twice lately. I've never seen the other man before." The author, who was talking in a low voice, was a ragged fellow with an unpleasant face. The Spaniard was wrapped in a big, loose overcoat. He had a bushy, white beard. Long white hair flowed from under his wide hat, and he wore dark spectacles. They sat down on the floor and the elder went on talking. "No, I've thought it over, and it's too dangerous." "Dangerous?" repeated the deaf and the dumb Spaniard to the immense surprise and horror of the boys. They gasped and shivered. It was Redskin Joe's voice. "Don't be a coward," continued Redskin Joe. "Isn't coming here in the daytime dangerous? Anyone who saw us would suspect us." "I know that," replied the stranger, "but there isn't any other place as suitable. I want to leave this place. I wanted to yesterday, but it wasn't any use trying to move out with those accused boys playing over there." Those accused boys shivered again. The two men got out some food and ate in silence. "Look here," said Rodskin Joe after a time, "go back to your home up the river. Wait there till you hear from me. I'll risk going into this town just once more for a look around. We'll do that job, which you think is dangerous after I've spied round a little and think everything's favorable. Denver settled for Texas together. This seemed satisfactory. Both men soon began yawning, and Redskin Joe said, "I can't hardly keep my eyes open. It's your turn to watch." He crawled up on the floor and was soon fast asleep. Presently the watcher began to nod and he, too, slept. The boys drew a long grateful breath. Tom whispered, "Now's our chance, come." Tom arched. Huck held back. At last Tom rose softly. But the first step he took produced such a terrible trick from the rotten floor that he sank down almost dead with fright. He did not make a second attempt. As the sun was setting, Redskin Joe sat up, stared around, and then stirred his companion with his foot. "You're fine, watchman, aren't you?" "It's all right, though. Nothing's happened." "Well, it's nearly time to be moving, partner," said Redskin Joe. "What shall we do with that money we've got left?" "I don't know," said the stranger. "Leave it here as we've always done. It's no use taking it away till we start south. $650 in silver is a lot to carry." "Yes, but it may be a long time before I get the right chance for that job. Accidents may happen, and it isn't in every safe place." "Well, we'll bury it properly." "Good idea," said Redskin Joe's companion, who walked across the room, raised one of the big flat stones in the fireplace, and lifted out a bag. He took from it $20 or $30 for himself and the same amount for Redskin Joe, and then passed it to the latter, who was on his knees in the corner now digging with his knife. The boys forgot all their fears, all their miseries in an instant. With wide eyes that watched every movement. Luck. This was better than anything they could have imagined. Here was the best kind of treasure hunting, without any troublesome uncertainty as to where to dig. The half-breed's knife struck something. "Hello!" he exclaimed. "What is it?" asked his companion. "It's a box, I believe. Here, help me and we'll see." "What it's here for?" "Never mind, I've made a hole in it." He put his hand and drew it out. "It's money." The two men examined the handful of coins. They were gold. The boys above were as excited as the men, and as delighted. "There's an old rusty pig in the corner," said the stranger. "I saw it a minute ago." He ran and brought the boy's pig and split. Redskin Joe took the pig, looked it over critically, shook his head, muttered something to himself, and then began to use it. The box was soon unearthed. "Partner, there are thousands of dollars here," said Redskin Joe. "I've often heard that Murrell's gang was around here one summer," remarked the stranger. "This is probably their money." "Well, now you won't need to do that job." The half-breed frowned. A wicked light shone in his eyes. "You don't know me. It isn't robbery altogether. It's revenge, and I'll need your help in it." "All right, what shall we do with it?" "Bury it again." "Yes." The boys above were delighted. "No, no." The disappointment arose. "I nearly forgotten. That pig had fresh earth on it." The boys were sick with terror in a moment. "Why are a pig and a split here? Who brought them?" Have you heard anybody? Seen anybody? What? Shall we bury it again and leave them to come and see the ground disturbed? Never. We'll take it to my place. Why, of course. You mean number one? No, number two, under the cross, replied Redskin Joe. Number one is not safe enough. All right, it's nearly dark enough to start. The half-breed got up and went about from window to window, consciously peeping out. Who could have brought those tools here? He asked presently. Do you think they can be upstairs? The boy's blood ran cold. Redskin Joe put his hand on his knife, stood for a moment, undecided, and then turned towards the staircase. His steps came creaking up the stairs. Both the boys were shivering, as if with a dozen fevers. Crash! Redskin Joe landed on the floor amidst the rotten wood of the fallen staircase. He picked himself up, cursing, and his companion said, Now, what's the use of that? If anybody's up there, let them stay there. Who cares? In my opinion, whoever left those tools here caught sight of us and thought we were devils or ghosts. I bet they're running yet. Redskin Joe muttered for some time. Soon afterwards, they slipped out of the house in the deepening twilight and moved towards the river with their precious box. Tom and Huck got up, weak but immensely relieved. They had not the slightest desire to follow Redskin Joe and the stranger. They were content to reach the ground without broken necks. They did not talk much on the way home. They were too busy hating themselves and the bad luck that made them take the tools there. But for that, Redskin Joe would never have suspected and would have left the silver and the gold. They determined to keep a lookout for that Spaniard when he came to town, spying out for the chances to do his revengeful job, and to follow him to number two, wherever that might be.